Lewis Hamilton has just revealed a truth so shocking, so brutally candid, that it might collapse Ferrari from within. His statements following the Canadian Grand Prix weren't merely a response to yet another frustrating weekend, but a direct caution that something is fundamentally damaged at Maranello. This goes beyond a single competition or a series of poor outcomes. Hamilton is exposing an antiquated culture, a framework resistant to change, and an organization that has completely disconnected from what modern Formula One success requires. While Red Bull, McLaren, and even Mercedes continue to innovate, Ferrari remains trapped in a cycle, hampered by its own hesitation, miscommunication, and tactical failures. Now, one of Formula One's legendary drivers is speaking out, not with subtle indications or diplomatic language, but with unfiltered, targeted exasperation that compels attention. Whatever you do, keep watching, because what Hamilton has disclosed could transform the trajectory of Ferrari's 2025 campaign and redefine his position within the Scuderia. Remember to appreciate this video, join our channel community, and remain with us until the conclusion because you wouldn't want to miss a single syllable of what Lewis Hamilton has unleashed. The situation becomes truly concerning, as Hamilton's revelations after the Canadian Grand Prix weren't simply an annoyed driver expressing emotions following a difficult weekend, but a deliberate, measured, and purposeful dismantling of the illusion that Ferrari still comprehends what occurs behind closed doors. It's becoming increasingly evident that Hamilton's confidence in the Ferrari initiative is starting to deteriorate, not due to one disappointing result, but because of a recurring pattern, a pattern of uncertainty, of quiet when clarity is most essential, and of a team operating as if intuition and heritage can substitute for accuracy and advancement. In Montreal, Hamilton questioned more than the vehicle's capabilities. He questioned the very foundation of Ferrari's race day procedures, the inability to analyze information, the absence of significant dialogue between driver and engineer, and a fundamental disconnect between the cockpit and command center. These aren't merely adjustment difficulties of a fresh partnership, but systemic issues becoming increasingly difficult to conceal with each race. Consider this. We're nearly halfway through the season, and Hamilton, arguably the most seasoned and accomplished driver competing, still receives ambiguous responses from his race engineer during crucial moments, still asking fundamental questions like, "Where has my speed disappeared to?" and receiving enigmatic answers like, "We are investigating it." This isn't merely miscommunication, it's negligence. Hamilton wasn't isolated in his critique either. Post-race, numerous figures within the paddock, journalists, former drivers, even insiders, began openly questioning how Ferrari, with two exceptional drivers and supposedly competitive equipment, managed to once again falter during a weekend that should have delivered substantially more. Serious speculation now exists that Ferrari's internal feedback mechanisms are so broken, so poorly calibrated, that even real-time driver input is either dismissed, misunderstood, or simply ignored. This extends beyond Canada. This culminates months of frustration, competitions lost not because of insufficient pace, but because of strategic errors, communication breakdowns, missed development opportunities. Hamilton understands this intimately because he arrived from a team where these details determined victory or defeat, and now finds himself repeating identical conversations week after week, while the team drifts further from the front. The most condemning aspect of his post-race comments wasn't the tone, but the substance. When Hamilton states, "I am uncertain why we haven't introduced improvements," that's not merely a grievance, that's an exposure. That's a 7-time world champion informing everyone that Ferrari, despite its legacy, still lacks the infrastructure to respond swiftly to a vehicle clearly requiring development. In a season where every tenth of a second matters, Ferrari procrastinates and Hamilton has reached his limit. His words were precise. He avoided naming individuals, didn't raise his voice, but the implications were enormous. "There's considerable activity occurring behind the scenes," he remarked, and you sense the significance of that statement because what's happening isn't merely technical, it's cultural, it's structural. For a team like Ferrari, so consumed with honor, heritage, and reputation, having a driver of Hamilton's caliber publicly revealing these issues represents nothing short of a catastrophe. What message does it send when Hamilton, in just his initial season, already sounds more like an internal reformer than a competitor? What does it signify when he's no longer discussing podiums but establishing groundwork for future reconstruction? It indicates the vision is unraveling rapidly, potentially causing serious consequences, not just for Ferrari's 2025 campaign, but their long-term direction. When a driver like Hamilton begins questioning team methodologies, others notice. Sponsors, technical personnel, engineers from rival teams all observe, and what they currently witness is a Ferrari operation under pressure, publicly exposed and internally unstable. If Ferrari cannot respond decisively to the Canadian situation, they risk something more damaging than another poor outcome. They risk losing Hamilton's trust. Once that trust vanishes, the genuine collapse commences, not just on the track, but within the team's very identity. This wasn't merely a race gone wrong, this was the most decorated driver in modern Formula One telling everyone, this approach isn't effective. If Maranello isn't listening now, they may soon confront a crisis far greater than any track disappointment. That's why this moment matters. This revelation exceeds a mere quote. It's a fault line, and unless Ferrari stabilizes quickly, everything they've attempted to construct around Hamilton could disintegrate before truly beginning. Don't look away now, because Lewis Hamilton's actions transcend a frustrated post-race interview. This constitutes a message, a warning, perhaps even a challenge to the very institution he now joins. With each carefully selected word, he hasn't merely highlighted Ferrari's deficiencies, he's directed a spotlight into Maranello's core, illuminating flaws long whispered about, but rarely acknowledged officially. This makes this moment so pivotal. We're not simply witnessing a premier driver criticizing his team after a disappointing outcome. We're watching one of the sport's most successful champions publicly demanding accountability, demanding transformation, demanding answers. When a voice as respected, experienced, and methodical as Lewis Hamilton's begins shaking the foundation, the entire paddock takes notice. The question isn't whether Ferrari will introduce upgrades next week or whether their race strategy improves in the next Grand Prix. It's whether Ferrari can transform into a team deserving of someone like Lewis Hamilton in its garage. The Canadian incident wasn't isolated but symptomatic of something deeper. Operational inertia, lack of urgency, a culture Hamilton now seems determined to confront directly. If Ferrari refuses to listen, if they allow pride, tradition, or internal politics to silence Hamilton's warnings, they risk more than lost races. They risk completely collapsing the one thing they cannot afford to lose: credibility. This transcends lap times, beyond broken brake pedals and missed strategy decisions. This concerns Ferrari's essence, whether it's willing to evolve or let history burden it until even the brightest talents cannot sustain it. Hamilton has clearly established his position, firmly without dramatics. He's here to lead, but refuses to do so blindfolded. He's here to win, but not with a team refusing adaptation. After Montreal's chaos, that path forward is no longer vague. Ferrari faces a simple choice: change or collapse. Stay with us, because the aftermath from this revelation won't merely unfold behind closed doors. It will erupt across every garage, every strategy meeting, and every race weekend throughout the remainder of the season. Ensure you witness everything, appreciate this video, join our channel community, and activate notifications, because if Lewis Hamilton's declaration was the spark, what follows could become the fire that either forges a new Ferrari or completely consumes the old one.